Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Flow State. I'm Natasha, and today we're diving into something truly transformative. If you've been studying English for years, if you can hold conversations and understand most of what you hear, but you feel stuck at that intermediate plateau, this masterclass is specifically designed for you. We're going to upgrade your vocabulary from B2 to C1 level, and I promise you, by the end of this session, you'll not only learn advanced words, but you'll know exactly how to use them naturally in real conversations. Now, before we jump in, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew what you wanted to say, but the words that came out sounded too simple, too basic? You're expressing complex ideas, but your vocabulary doesn't match the sophistication of your thoughts. That's the B2 plateau, and today we're breaking through it together. The difference between B2 and C1 isn't just about knowing more words. It's about precision. It's about nuance. It's about choosing the exact right word that captures not just the meaning, but the tone, the feeling, the context. A C1 speaker doesn't just say someone is smart. They say someone is astute or insightful or perceptive, depending on the exact quality they want to highlight. Do you see the difference? That's what we're mastering today. Let's start with our first category, describing people and their qualities. At B2 level, you might say someone is hardworking. That's perfectly correct, but it's basic. At C1 level, we elevate this. If someone works hard and never gives up, they're tenacious. Repeat after me, tenacious. Good. Use it in a sentence with me. She's incredibly tenacious. She never gives up on her goals. Beautiful. But let's go deeper. What if someone works hard but in a very careful, thorough way? They're diligent. Repeat, diligent. Now you try. He's a diligent student who checks every detail. Excellent. Notice how diligent carries a sense of carefulness that hardworking doesn't capture? That's the precision we're after. Now, what about someone who's smart? At B2, you say intelligent or clever. At C1, we have options. If someone understands things quickly and deeply, they're astute. Say it with me. Astute. Her astute observations impressed everyone in the meeting. Good. If someone has deep knowledge and wisdom, especially from experience, they're sagacious. That's a powerful word. Sagacious. The sagacious leader guided the company through the crisis. Perfect. But here's where it gets interesting. If someone is smart in a practical, street-smart way, we say they're shrewd. Repeat. Shrewd. He's a shrewd negotiator who always gets the best deal. Notice the slightly strategic, clever connotation? That's the nuance of C1 vocabulary. Let's talk about personality traits now. Someone who's very determined might be called stubborn at B2 level, but that has a negative connotation, right? At C1, if we want to be more positive, we say they're resolute. Say it, resolute. She remained resolute in her decision despite the criticism. Much more sophisticated. What about someone who's very confident, maybe too confident? At B2, you might say arrogant. But at C1, we have presumptuous for someone who assumes too much, or ostentatious for someone who shows off. Let's practice. His ostentatious display of wealth made others uncomfortable. Good. It was presumptuous of her to assume she'd get the promotion. Excellent. Now, positive traits. Someone who's friendly and easy to talk to isn't just nice at C1 level. They're affable. Repeat after me. Affable. The new manager is quite affable. Everyone enjoys working with him. Beautiful. Or if someone is friendly in a very warm, welcoming way, they're amiable. Say it, amiable. Her amiable personality makes her popular at social gatherings. Perfect. Let's move to expressing opinions and ideas. This is where B2 speakers really struggle because they use the same basic phrases over and over. I think, in my opinion, I believe. At C1, we diversify. Instead of I think this is important, we say I contend that this is crucial. Repeat, I contend. I would contend that education is the foundation of social progress. Excellent. Or we use I maintain that for a strong opinion we're defending. I maintain that environmental protection should be our top priority. Good. For suggesting something carefully, we use I would posit that or I would argue that. These phrases immediately elevate your speaking to C1 level. When you agree with someone, don't just say I agree. At C1, we say I concur in formal contexts. Repeat, I concur. I concur with your assessment of the situation. Or we say, that resonates with me for a more personal agreement. Your point about work-life balance really resonates with me. Beautiful. When you disagree, instead of I don't agree, try I must respectfully disagree or I take a different view. Even better, I would challenge that assumption. These phrases show sophistication and diplomacy. Let's practice. While I appreciate your perspective, I would challenge the assumption that technology always improves productivity. Excellent. Now let's talk about describing situations and circumstances. At B2, you might say something is difficult. At C1, we're more specific. If something is difficult because it's complicated, it's intricate or convoluted, say it, intricate. The legal process is quite intricate and requires expert guidance. Good. The plot of the novel was so convoluted that I had trouble following it. Perfect. If a situation is difficult because it's awkward or uncomfortable, it's delicate. Repeat, delicate. It's a delicate situation that requires careful handling. Or if it's difficult because it's uncertain and risky, it's precarious. Say it with me. Precarious. The company's financial position is precarious at the moment. Excellent. See how much more precise these words are than just difficult? When something is important at B2 level, you say it's important or very important. At C1, we have layers. Something can be crucial, vital, paramount, or imperative. Let's practice each one. It's crucial that we meet this deadline. Good. Clean water is vital for human survival. Excellent. Safety is paramount in this industry. Beautiful. It's imperative that we act now. Perfect. Each of these words carries slightly different weight and urgency. Let's talk about change and development. At B2, you say things change or improve. At C1, we're more descriptive. If something changes gradually over time, it evolves. Repeat, evolves. Language evolves constantly with cultural changes. Good. If something improves and reaches a high point, it culminates. Say it, culminates. Years of practice culminated in her winning the championship. Excellent. If a situation gets worse, instead of saying gets worse, we say it deteriorates or degenerates. Practice with me. The patient's condition deteriorated overnight. Good. The discussion degenerated into an argument. Perfect. Much more sophisticated than got worse, right? When describing how common something is, B2 speakers say common or rare. At C1, we say something is prevalent if it's widespread, ubiquitous if it's everywhere, or pervasive if it spreads throughout something. Let's practice. Smartphone use is ubiquitous in modern society. Good. There's a pervasive sense of anxiety about the economy. Excellent. This type of behavior is prevalent among teenagers. Beautiful. For rare things, we use scarce, sparse, or sporadic. Repeat after me. Fresh water is becoming increasingly scarce. Good. Vegetation is sparse in desert regions. Excellent. His attendance at meetings was sporadic at best. Perfect. Now let's work on expressing cause and effect, because this is essential for C1 level communication. At B2, you say because or so. At C1, we have sophisticated connectors. Instead of because, we use owing to, due to, on account of, or by virtue of. Let's practice. The event was cancelled owing to bad weather. Good. She succeeded by virtue of her determination. Excellent. The evidence was insufficient, hence the case was dismissed.
Let's dive deeper into expressing contrast and comparison, because this is where C1 speakers really shine. At B2, you use but and however. At C1, we have a rich palette of options. When you want to show a strong contrast, use nevertheless or nonetheless. Repeat after me, nevertheless. The task was challenging. Nevertheless, she completed it on time. Good. The evidence was compelling. Nonetheless, the jury remained unconvinced. Excellent. When you want to show something surprising or contrary to expectations, use paradoxically or ironically. Say it with me, paradoxically. Paradoxically, the more choices we have, the less satisfied we feel. Beautiful. Ironically, his attempt to save time actually cost him more time in the end. Perfect. These adverbs add sophistication and show you can recognize complex relationships between ideas. Now, let's talk about another contrast connector, notwithstanding. This is very formal and very C1. Repeat, notwithstanding. Notwithstanding the difficulties, the project was a success. Or we can use albeit for conceding a point. Say it, albeit. The solution was effective, albeit expensive. Excellent. Notice how these words make your English sound more academic and polished? Let's move to describing emotions and feelings, because this is where vocabulary precision really matters. At B2, you say someone is worried. At C1, we distinguish between different types of worry. If someone is slightly worried, they're apprehensive. Repeat, apprehensive. I'm feeling apprehensive about the presentation tomorrow. Good. If they're very worried and uneasy, they're anxious. She was anxious about the test results. If they're worried to the point of being troubled or disturbed, they're perturbed. Say it, perturbed. He was perturbed by the sudden change in plans. Perfect. What about being happy? At B2, you say happy or very happy. At C1, we're more nuanced. If you're happy and satisfied, you're content.
Repeat, content. After years of searching, she finally felt content with her career. Good. If you're extremely happy and excited, you're elated. Say it, elated. I was elated when I heard I got the job. If you're happy in a peaceful, blissful way, you're serene. Practice. The meditation retreat left her feeling serene and centered. Beautiful. For sadness, we move beyond sad. Someone deeply sad is melancholy or despondent. Repeat after me. Melancholy. The rainy weather put him in a melancholy mood. Good. After losing the championship, the team felt despondent. Excellent. If someone is sad and disappointed, they're crestfallen or disheartened. Say it, crestfallen. She looked crestfallen when she didn't receive the award. Perfect. Now, anger at B2 is just angry. At C1, we differentiate. Slightly angry is annoyed or irritated. Very angry is furious or livid. But here's a sophisticated one. If someone is angry because they feel they've been treated unfairly, they're indignant. Repeat, indignant. She was indignant at the suggestion that she had cheated. Excellent. If someone is angry and bitter about something from the past, they're resentful. He remained resentful about being passed over for promotion. Good. Let's work on describing behavior and actions now. At B2, you might say someone avoids something. At C1, if someone deliberately avoids something or someone, they eschew it or shun it. Repeat after me. Eschew. He eschews social media and prefers face-to-face interaction. Good. The community shunned those who broke the traditional rules. Excellent. Much more powerful than just avoid, isn't it? When someone does something reluctantly or without enthusiasm, at B2 you might say they're not interested. At C1 we say they're reticent or reluctant. Say it, reticent. She was reticent to share personal details with strangers. Good. Or if someone is hesitant and uncertain, they're ambivalent. Repeat, ambivalent. He felt ambivalent about accepting the job offer. There were pros and cons. Perfect. If someone wastes time or delays, at B2 you say waste time. At C1, they procrastinate or dawdle. But here's a sophisticated option. If someone deliberately delays to gain an advantage, they stall or prevaricate. Say it with me, prevaricate. The politician prevaricated when asked direct questions about the scandal. Excellent. Stop prevaricating and give me a straight answer. Good. Now let's talk about describing communication and speech. At B2, someone talks a lot. At C1, if they talk too much about unimportant things, they're loquacious or they prattle. Repeat, loquacious. My loquacious neighbor can talk for hours about nothing in particular. Good. If someone speaks in a way that's hard to understand because they're unclear, they ramble or they're incoherent. His speech was so incoherent that nobody understood his point. Excellent. On the positive side, if someone speaks well and persuasively, they're eloquent or articulate. Say it with me, eloquent. The speaker delivered an eloquent address that moved the audience to tears. Beautiful. She's remarkably articulate for someone so young. Perfect. These words show you appreciate sophisticated communication. If someone speaks in a sharp, brief way, they're curt or terse. Repeat, terse. His terse reply suggested he was annoyed. Good. If someone speaks carefully and tactfully about sensitive topics, they're diplomatic or discreet. She handled the delicate situation with diplomatic skill. Excellent. Let's move to describing thinking and mental processes. At B2, you think carefully. At C1, you deliberate, contemplate, or ponder. Let's practice each one. The jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching a verdict. Good. He sat by the window, contemplating his future. Excellent. She pondered the question before responding. Beautiful. Each word has slightly different connotations about the depth and purpose of thinking. If you think about something deeply and at length, you ruminate on it. Repeat, ruminate. He tends to ruminate on past mistakes instead of moving forward. Good. If you think something through very carefully, examining all aspects, you scrutinize it or you're meticulous. Say it, scrutinize. The accountant scrutinized every entry in the financial report. Perfect. When someone understands something complex, at B2 you say they understand. At C1, they comprehend, grasp, or discern. But here's a sophisticated option. If someone understands the true nature of something that's hidden or complex, they perceive it or they're perceptive. Repeat after me. She perceived the underlying tension in the room. Good. His perceptive analysis revealed flaws others had missed. Excellent. Now let's work on describing problems and solutions. At B2, you have a problem. At C1, we're more specific. A serious problem is a predicament or a dilemma. Say it, predicament. The company found itself in a financial predicament. Good.
A dilemma specifically means a difficult choice between two options. She faced a dilemma: accept the promotion or spend more time with family. Perfect. If a problem is complicated and difficult to solve, it's a conundrum or a quandary. Repeat, conundrum. How to fund healthcare while reducing taxes is a political conundrum. Excellent. A very serious problem that causes suffering is a plight or an ordeal. The documentary highlighted the plight of refugees. Good. The hostages described their ordeal in captivity. Beautiful. For solutions, at B2, you solve a problem. At C1, you resolve, rectify, or ameliorate it. Let's practice. We need to resolve this conflict through dialogue. Good. The company took steps to rectify the billing errors. Excellent. The new policy should ameliorate the housing shortage. Perfect. Ameliorate specifically means to make something bad less severe, which is more precise than just solve. If you reduce something negative, you can also mitigate it or alleviate it. Repeat after me. Mitigate. The insurance will mitigate the financial impact of the accident. Good. The medication should alleviate your symptoms. Excellent. These words show you understand nuanced differences in how problems are addressed. Let's talk about describing intensity and degree. At B2, something is very big. At C1, we say it's substantial, considerable, or significant. Practice with me. There was a substantial increase in sales this quarter. Good. She made a considerable contribution to the project. Excellent. This represents a significant breakthrough in cancer research. Perfect. If something is extremely big or important, it's immense, tremendous, or monumental. Say it. Immense. The project required immense effort and resources. Good. There's tremendous pressure on the team to succeed. This was a monumental achievement in space exploration.
For something very small or minor, at B2, you say small or not important. At C1, we use negligible, trivial, or marginal. Repeat after me. Negligible. The side effects of the medication are negligible. Good. Don't waste time on trivial matters when we have urgent issues to address. Excellent. There was only a marginal improvement in performance. Perfect. Each of these words carries a specific shade of meaning about just how small or unimportant something is. Now let's work on describing speed and pace. At B2, something is fast or slow. At C1, if something happens very quickly, it's rapid, swift, or expeditious. Say it with me. Expeditious. We need an expeditious resolution to this matter. Good. The company experienced rapid growth in its first year. Excellent. Her swift response prevented a disaster. Beautiful. If something is extremely fast and sudden, it's abrupt or precipitous. Repeat. Precipitous. There was a precipitous decline in stock prices. Good. His abrupt departure left everyone surprised. Perfect. Notice how precipitous suggests not just speed, but also something dramatic or even dangerous? For slow, we elevate to gradual, incremental, or protracted. Let's practice. The recovery will be gradual, not overnight. Good. We're making incremental progress toward our goal. Excellent. The negotiations were protracted and exhausting. Perfect. Protracted specifically suggests something is slow because it's being drawn out too long. Let's move to describing certainty and doubt. At B2, you're sure or not sure. At C1, if you're completely certain, you're convinced, confident, or you have conviction. Repeat after me. I'm convinced that this is the right approach. Good. She spoke with confidence and conviction. Excellent. If you're absolutely certain, beyond any doubt, something is indisputable or unequivocal. Say it. Unequivocal. The evidence is unequivocal. He was at the scene. Perfect. When you're uncertain, instead of I'm not sure, we say I'm skeptical, I'm dubious, or I have reservations. Let's practice. I'm skeptical about the claims made in that advertisement. Good. She was dubious about his ability to complete the task. Excellent. I have reservations about implementing this policy so quickly. Beautiful. These phrases sound much more sophisticated than simply saying, I'm not sure. If something is uncertain or unclear, it's ambiguous, vague, or nebulous. Repeat. Ambiguous. The contract language is ambiguous and open to interpretation. Good. He gave a vague answer that didn't really address the question. Excellent. Their future plans remain nebulous at this point. Perfect. Nebulous is particularly sophisticated. It means something is hazy and undefined, like a cloud. Now let's talk about describing effort and hard work. At B2, someone tries hard.
At C1, they strive, endeavor, or exert themselves. Say it with me. Strive. We must strive for excellence in everything we do. Good. She endeavored to complete the project despite numerous obstacles. Excellent. He exerted himself to the point of exhaustion. Perfect. If someone works very hard with great determination, they're assiduous or industrious. Repeat after me. Assiduous. Her assiduous research led to groundbreaking discoveries. Good. The industrious team completed the work ahead of schedule. Excellent. These are powerful words that convey serious dedication. When someone persists despite difficulties, at B2, you say they keep trying. At C1, they persevere, persist, or demonstrate tenacity. We've used tenacity before, but let's reinforce it. Despite repeated failures, she persevered and eventually succeeded. Good. His persistence paid off when she finally secured funding. Excellent. Her tenacity in the face of adversity was inspiring. Beautiful. Let's work on describing attitudes and approaches. At B2, someone has a positive attitude or negative attitude. At C1, we're far more specific. Someone with a positive, hopeful attitude is optimistic or sanguine. Repeat. Sanguine. Despite the challenges, he remained sanguine about the project's success. Good. If someone is realistically positive and sensible, they're pragmatic. She took a pragmatic approach to solving the problem. Excellent. Someone with a negative attitude might be pessimistic, cynical, or jaded. Let's practice. His pessimistic outlook prevents him from seeing opportunities. Good. After years in politics, she became cynical about campaign promises. Perfect. The jaded journalist had seen it all before and was hard to impress. Perfect. Notice how cynical suggests distrust of others' motives, while jaded suggests being worn down by experience. If someone is neutral and unbiased, they're objective or impartial. Say it with me. Impartial. The judge must remain impartial throughout the trial. Good. We need an objective assessment of the situation. Excellent. If someone is biased or unfair, they're prejudiced or partial. His prejudiced views colored his judgment. Good. Now let's discuss change in intensity or degree. At B2, something increases or decreases. At C1, if something increases gradually, it escalates, intensifies, or amplifies. Repeat after me. Escalate. The conflict escalated into violence. Good. The pressure intensified as the deadline approached. Excellent. Social media amplified the impact of the campaign. Perfect. These verbs are so much more vivid than just increase a lot. For decrease, we use diminish, decline, or wane. Say it. Diminish. Public interest in the scandal gradually diminished. Good. His health declined rapidly in the final months. Excellent. Her enthusiasm for the project began to wane. Perfect. If something decreases to almost nothing, it dwindles or dissipates. Their savings dwindled to nothing. Good. The crowd slowly dissipated after the concert. Excellent. Let's move to describing influence and impact. At B2, something affects or influences something else. At C1, if something strongly affects something, it impacts, shapes, or molds. Repeat. This experience profoundly shaped her worldview. Good. Childhood experiences mold our personalities. Excellent. The policy will significantly impact small businesses. Perfect. If something influences gradually and subtly, it permeates or pervades. Say it with me. Permeate. Technology has permeated every aspect of modern life. Good. A sense of unease pervaded the atmosphere. Excellent. These words suggest something spreading through gradually, like water through fabric. If something has a very strong, often negative effect, it undermines, erodes, or compromises. Let's practice. Lack of sleep undermines cognitive function. Good. Constant criticism eroded her confidence. Excellent. The scandal compromised his credibility. Perfect. Notice how each word suggests a different type of damage? Now, describing visibility and clarity. At B2, something is clear or unclear. At C1, if something is very clear and easy to understand, it's lucid, transparent, or explicit. Repeat after me. Lucid. She gave a lucid explanation of the complex theory. Good. The company's financial records are transparent and available to all. Excellent. He was explicit about his expectations from the beginning. Perfect. Obscure means something is deliberately mysterious or puzzling. Let's work on describing relationships between things. At B2, things are connected or related. At C1, if things are closely connected and dependent on each other, they're intertwined, interrelated, or interdependent. Repeat. Intertwined. Economic and political issues are deeply intertwined. Good. These problems are interrelated and cannot be solved separately. Excellent. Modern economies are interdependent through global trade.
If things are related because one causes the other, they have a causal relationship, or one is contingent upon the other. Say it with me. Contingent. Our success is contingent upon securing adequate funding. Good. There's a clear causal relationship between smoking and lung cancer. Excellent. These phrases show you understand logical connections at an advanced level. If two things are completely opposite or incompatible, they're contradictory, incompatible, or antithetical. Repeat after me. Antithetical. His actions were antithetical to his stated values. Good. Their management styles are completely incompatible. Excellent. The two theories are contradictory and cannot both be correct. Perfect. Antithetical is particularly sophisticated and shows deep understanding. Now let's talk about describing frequency and regularity. At B2, something happens often or rarely. At C1, if something happens very frequently and regularly, it's recurrent, habitual, or endemic. Say it. Recurrent. She suffers from recurrent headaches. Good. His habitual lateness has become a problem. Excellent. Corruption is endemic in that political system. Perfect. Endemic suggests something is deeply rooted and widespread in a particular place or system. If something happens occasionally or irregularly, it's sporadic, intermittent, or periodic. Let's practice. There were sporadic outbreaks of violence throughout the region. Good. The patient experienced intermittent pain. Excellent. The magazine is published on a periodic basis. Beautiful. Each word captures a slightly different pattern of occurrence. If something happens only once or is unique, it's singular, unprecedented, or anomalous. Repeat. Unprecedented. We're facing an unprecedented global crisis. Good. This was a singular achievement in the history of science. Excellent. The test results were anomalous and required further investigation. Perfect. Anomalous specifically means something that deviates from what's normal or expected. Let's move to describing necessity and importance. At B2, something is necessary or important. At C1, if something is absolutely necessary, it's essential, indispensable, or requisite. Say it with me. Indispensable. Clean air and water are indispensable for life. Good. Experience is a requisite qualification for this position. Excellent. Her contribution to the project was absolutely essential. Perfect. If something is necessary as a condition for something else, it's a prerequisite. Repeat. Prerequisite. A bachelor's degree is a prerequisite for admission to the program. Good. If something is not necessary but would be helpful, it's desirable or advantageous. Fluency in Spanish is desirable but not required. Excellent. Having local connections would be advantageous. Perfect. If something is completely unnecessary or serves no purpose, it's superfluous, redundant, or extraneous. Let's practice. The additional explanation was superfluous. Everyone already understood. Good. This step in the process is redundant and can be eliminated. Beautiful. Try to remove extraneous details from your presentation. Beautiful. These words show you can identify what's not needed. Now let's work on describing complexity and simplicity. At B2, something is complicated or simple. At C1, if something is very complex with many parts, it's intricate, elaborate, or multifaceted. We've used intricate before, but let's reinforce it with new examples. The watch mechanism is incredibly intricate. Good. She developed an elaborate plan with multiple contingencies. Excellent. This is a multifaceted problem requiring diverse solutions. Perfect. If something is complex in a confusing, messy way, it's convoluted, tangled, or labyrinthine. Say it. Labyrinthine. The bureaucratic process was labyrinthine and frustrating. Good. The legal argument was so convoluted that even experts struggled to follow it. The tangled web of relationships made the situation difficult to resolve. Beautiful. For simplicity, we use straightforward, uncomplicated, or rudimentary. Repeat. Straightforward. The instructions are straightforward and easy to follow. Good. This is a relatively uncomplicated procedure. Excellent. He has only a rudimentary understanding of the subject. Perfect. Rudimentary specifically means basic or elementary. Let's discuss about appropriateness and suitability. At B2, something is appropriate or suitable.
At C1, if something is perfectly appropriate for the situation, it's apt, fitting, or pertinent. Say it with me, pertinent. She raised several pertinent questions during the meeting. Good. His apt comparison clarified the concept. Excellent. It seems fitting that we should celebrate this achievement. Perfect. If something is especially appropriate because it's timely, it's opportune or propitious. Repeat, opportune. This is an opportune moment to launch the new product. Good. The weather conditions were propitious for the expedition. Excellent. Propitious suggests favorable conditions, almost lucky timing. If something is inappropriate or unsuitable, it's inappropriate, unbecoming, or improper. But at C1, we can be more specific. If something is inappropriate because it's out of place, it's incongruous. Say it, incongruous. His casual attire was incongruous in the formal setting. Good. If something is inappropriate because it lacks good taste, it's unseemly or indecorous. Such behavior is unseemly for someone in his position. Excellent. Now let's work on describing permanence and change. At B2, something is permanent or temporary. At C1, if something is permanent and unchanging, it's immutable, invariable, or enduring. Repeat after me, immutable. Physical laws are immutable and universal. Good. Her enduring legacy continues to inspire generations. Perfect. If something is temporary or short-lived, it's transient, ephemeral, or fleeting. Let's practice. Beauty is transient and fades with time. Good. Fame can be ephemeral. Today's star is tomorrow's forgotten name. Beautiful. Ephemeral is particularly poetic and sophisticated. If something can change or be changed, it's mutable, malleable, or fluid. Say it, malleable. Young minds are malleable and open to new ideas. Good. The plan is fluid and can be adjusted as needed. Perfect. Human nature is not as mutable as some believe. Perfect. Let's move to describing authenticity and genuineness. At B2, something is real or fake. At C1, if something is genuine and authentic, it's bona fide, legitimate, or authentic. Repeat, bona fide. She's a bona fide expert with years of experience. Good. We need to verify that this is a legitimate document. Excellent. The painting was authenticated as an original masterpiece. Perfect. If something is fake or not genuine, it's spurious, counterfeit, or fraudulent. Say it with me. Spurious. His claims were spurious and lacked evidence. Good. They were arrested for selling counterfeit goods. Excellent. The company was involved in fraudulent accounting practices. Perfect. Each word carries different connotations about the type of fakeness. If something appears real but isn't, it's ostensible or purported. Repeat. Ostensible. The ostensible reason for the meeting was to discuss budgets, but there was a hidden agenda. Good. He's the purported author of the manuscript, but many doubt its authenticity. Excellent. These words suggest surface appearance versus underlying reality. Now let's talk about describing willingness and readiness. At B2, someone is willing or unwilling. At C1, if someone is very willing and enthusiastic, they're eager, keen, or inclined. Say it. Inclined. I'm inclined to agree with your assessment. Good. She's eager to start the new project. Excellent. He's always been keen on outdoor activities. Perfect. If someone is unwilling or reluctant, they're averse, disinclined, or loath. Repeat. Loath. I'm loath to make promises I can't keep. Good. She's averse to taking unnecessary risks. Excellent. He seemed disinclined to participate in the discussion. Beautiful. Loath is particularly strong, suggesting deep reluctance.
If someone is ready and prepared, they're poised, primed, or equipped. Let's practice. The company is poised for expansion into new markets. Good. The team is primed and ready for the championship. Excellent. She's well equipped to handle the challenges ahead. Perfect. Poised especially suggests being balanced and ready at the perfect moment. Let's work on describing expectations and outcomes. At B2, something is expected or unexpected. At C1, if something is expected based on logic or evidence, it's anticipated, predictable, or inevitable. Repeat after me. Inevitable. Given the circumstances, this outcome was inevitable. Good. The results were entirely predictable. Excellent. We anticipated these difficulties and prepared accordingly. Perfect. If something is unexpected, it's unforeseen, unanticipated, or fortuitous. Say it. Fortuitous. Our meeting was fortuitous. It led to an important collaboration. Good. The company faced unforeseen challenges. Excellent. The discovery was completely unanticipated. Beautiful. Fortuitous specifically means unexpectedly lucky or fortunate. If an outcome exceeds expectations, it surpasses, exceeds, or transcends them. Let's practice. Her performance surpassed all expectations. Good. The profits exceeded our most optimistic projections. Excellent. This achievement transcends mere success. It's transformative. Perfect. Transcends is particularly powerful, suggesting going beyond ordinary limits.
Now let's discuss describing agreement and disagreement. At B2, people agree or disagree. At C1, if people agree completely, they're in accord, they concur, or there's consensus. Repeat, consensus. There's a growing consensus among scientists on this issue. Good. The committee reached accord on the main points. Excellent. I concur with the previous speaker's analysis. Perfect. If people strongly agree and work together harmoniously, they're aligned, unified, or cohesive. Say it with me. Cohesive. We need a more cohesive strategy across all departments. Good. The team is unified in its commitment to the goal. Excellent. Our values are aligned with the company's mission. Beautiful. When there's disagreement at C1, we describe it more precisely. If people disagree but respectfully, there's discord, dissent, or divergence. Let's practice. There was some discord within the group about the approach. Good. She voiced her dissent during the meeting. Excellent. Our views diverge on this particular issue. Perfect. If disagreement is strong and contentious, there's contention, strife, or polarization. Repeat, polarization. The issue has caused significant polarization in society. Good. There's considerable contention over the proposed changes. Excellent. Years of strife have damaged relationships within the organization. Beautiful. These words convey serious conflict. Let's move to describing knowledge and understanding. At B2, someone knows or doesn't know. At C1, if someone has deep knowledge, they're versed, well-versed, or conversant. Say it, conversant. She's well-versed in European history. Good. He's conversant with the latest developments in the field. Excellent. You need to be versed in multiple programming languages for this role. Perfect. If someone lacks knowledge, they're ignorant, uninformed, or oblivious. Let's practice carefully, as these can sound harsh. Many people are simply uninformed about the facts. Good. He seemed oblivious to the tension in a room. Excellent. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Perfect. Use these words tactfully. If someone has shallow or incomplete knowledge, they're superficial in their understanding, or they have a cursory knowledge. Say it, cursory. He gave the report only a cursory glance. Good. Her understanding of the issue was rather superficial. Excellent. These suggest knowledge that doesn't go deep enough. Now let's discuss describing reliability and trustworthiness. At B2, someone is reliable or unreliable. At C1, if someone is completely reliable, they're dependable, steadfast, or unwavering. Repeat after me. Steadfast. She remains steadfast in her commitment despite obstacles. Good. He's proven to be dependable in every situation. Excellent. Her unwavering support meant everything to the team. Perfect. If someone or something is trustworthy and can be relied upon, it's credible, reputable, or sound. Let's practice. This is information from a credible source. Good. We're working with a reputable firm. Excellent. The research methodology is sound. Beautiful. These words establish trustworthiness at an advanced level. If someone is unreliable, they're erratic, inconsistent, or capricious. Say it, capricious. His capricious behavior makes it hard to work with him. Good. The weather has been erratic all week. Excellent. Her performance is frustratingly inconsistent. Perfect. Capricious suggests unpredictable changes, often based on whim. Let's work on describing scale and scope. At B2, something is big or covers a wide area. At C1, if something is very large in scale, it's extensive, comprehensive, or far-reaching. Repeat, comprehensive. We conducted a comprehensive review of all procedures. Good. The reforms will have far-reaching consequences. Excellent. The damage was extensive. Perfect. If something covers everything or is all-inclusive, it's exhaustive, all-encompassing, or thorough. Say it with me. Exhaustive. The report provides an exhaustive analysis of the data. Good. We need a thorough investigation of the incident. Beautiful. The course offers an all-encompassing introduction to the subject. Beautiful. If something is limited in scale or scope, it's confined, restricted, or narrow. Let's practice. The study was confined to a small geographic area. Good. Access is restricted to authorized personnel only. Excellent. His focus is too narrow. He needs a broader perspective. Perfect. Now let's discuss describing efficiency and effectiveness. At B2, something works well or doesn't work well. At C1, if something is very efficient, it's optimal, streamlined, or economical. Repeat, optimal. We're seeking the optimal solution to this problem. Good. The new process is more streamlined and efficient. This is the most economical use of our resources. Perfect. If something is inefficient or wasteful, it's inefficient, wasteful, or counterproductive. Say it, counterproductive.
Micromanaging employees is counterproductive. It reduces motivation. Good. The current system is wasteful and needs reform. This approach is proving inefficient. Beautiful. If something achieves its purpose effectively, it's efficacious or productive. Repeat. Efficacious. The treatment has proven efficacious in clinical trials. Good. We had a very productive meeting. Efficacious is particularly sophisticated and often used in formal or scientific contexts. Let's move to innovation and tradition. At B2, something is new or old. At C1, if something is completely new and original, it's novel, innovative, or groundbreaking. Let's practice. This is a novel approach to an old problem. Good. The company is known for its innovative products. Excellent. This represents a groundbreaking discovery in medicine. Perfect. If something is cutting edge and at the forefront, it's pioneering, avant-garde, or state-of-the-art. Say it with me. Avant-garde. His avant-garde designs challenge traditional aesthetics. Good. This is state-of-the-art technology. Beautiful. She's a pioneering researcher in her field.
If something follows tradition and established ways, it's conventional, orthodox, or time-honored. Repeat. Orthodox. He took a very orthodox approach to the problem. Good. This is a time-honored tradition in our culture. Excellent. Her views are quite conventional. Perfect. These words can be neutral or slightly negative depending on context. If something is very old or outdated, it's antiquated, archaic, or obsolete. Let's practice. The equipment is antiquated and needs replacement. Good. Such thinking is archaic in the modern world. Excellent. This technology has become obsolete. Beautiful. Each word suggests something that's fallen behind the times. Now let's work on describing attitude toward risk and caution. At B2, someone is careful or careless. At C1, if someone is very careful and cautious, they're prudent, circumspect, or judicious. Say it. Circumspect. She was circumspect about revealing too much information. Good. It would be prudent to wait for more data before deciding. Excellent. He made a judicious choice after weighing all options. Perfect. Circumspect especially suggests careful discretion. If someone is excessively cautious or careful, they're overly cautious, risk-averse, or timid. Repeat. Risk-averse. The company has become too risk-averse to innovate. Good. His timid approach prevented him from seizing opportunities. Excellent. These suggest caution that might be holding someone back. If someone is careless or reckless, they're imprudent, rash, or heedless. Let's practice. It was imprudent to invest without proper research. Good. Don't make rash decisions based on emotion. Excellent. He was heedless of the warnings and proceeded anyway. Perfect. Heedless especially means ignoring warnings or advice. If someone takes bold risks, they're audacious, daring, or intrepid. Say it with me. Intrepid. The intrepid explorers ventured into unknown territory. Good. Her audacious plan shocked everyone but ultimately succeeded. Excellent. He's known for his daring business ventures. Beautiful. These words carry positive connotations of brave risk-taking. Now let's discuss describing clarity in expression and thought. At B2, something is clear or confusing. At C1, if someone expresses ideas very clearly, they're articulate, coherent, or cogent. Repeat. Cogent. She presented a cogent argument that convinced the board. Good. His explanation was clear and coherent. Perfect. You need to be more articulate when presenting to clients. Cogent means logically compelling. If someone's thinking or expression is confused or unclear, it's muddled, convoluted, or disjointed. We've used convoluted before, so let's focus on the others. His muddled thinking led to poor decisions. Good. The presentation was disjointed and hard to follow. Excellent. These suggest lack of clear organization. If someone deliberately makes something unclear or confusing, they obfuscate or obscure the truth. Say it. Obfuscate. Politicians often obfuscate rather than answer directly. Good. Don't try to obscure the facts with technical jargon. Excellent. These verbs suggest intentional confusion, which is quite different from accidental confusion. Now let's work on describing emotional states related to satisfaction. At B2, someone is satisfied or dissatisfied. At C1, if someone is very satisfied and pleased, they're gratified, fulfilled, or content. Repeat. Gratified. I was gratified by the positive response to my work. Good. She felt fulfilled in her career.
Excellent. After years of searching, he finally felt content. Perfect. If someone is extremely satisfied to the point of smugness, they're complacent or self-satisfied. Let's practice. Success made them complacent and they stopped innovating. Good. His self-satisfied attitude irritated his colleagues. Notice how these have negative connotations. Satisfaction can go too far. If someone is dissatisfied, they're discontented, disgruntled, or disillusioned. Say it. Disgruntled. The disgruntled employees threatened to strike. Good. She became disillusioned with politics after years of broken promises. Perfect. There's widespread discontent among the workforce. Disillusioned especially means disappointed after discovering reality doesn't match ideals. Let's move to describing power and influence. At B2, someone is powerful or weak. At C1, if someone has great power or authority, they're authoritative, commanding, or formidable. Repeat. Formidable. She's a formidable opponent in debate. Good. He has a commanding presence in the boardroom. Excellent. The director spoke with authoritative confidence. Perfect. If someone has dominant power over others, they're dominant, preeminent, or they wield power. Say it with me. Preeminent. He's the preeminent expert in this field. Good. The company wields considerable influence in the industry. Beautiful. If someone lacks power or is weak, they're powerless, impotent, or ineffectual. Let's practice carefully. Citizens felt powerless against government corruption. Good. The committee proved ineffectual at enacting change. His attempts to control the situation were impotent. Perfect. Use these words thoughtfully, as they can be quite harsh. Now let's discuss describing attention and focus. At B2, someone pays attention or doesn't pay attention. At C1, if someone pays very close attention, they're attentive, vigilant, or observant. Repeat. Vigilant. Security personnel must remain vigilant at all times. Good. She's very observant and notices small details. The attentive student caught the subtle error. Perfect. If someone pays extremely careful attention to detail, they're meticulous, scrupulous, or fastidious. Say it. Fastidious. He's fastidious about following proper procedures. Good. The editor was meticulous in checking every fact. She's scrupulous about ethical conduct. Beautiful. These suggest almost obsessive attention to detail. If someone doesn't pay attention, they're inattentive, negligent, or oblivious. We've used oblivious before, so let's focus on negligent. The company was negligent in maintaining safety standards. Good. His inattentive driving caused the accident. Negligent carries serious implications of failing in responsibility. Let's work on describing generosity and selfishness. At B2, someone is generous or selfish. At C1, if someone is very generous, they're magnanimous, benevolent, or munificent. Repeat after me. Magnanimous. In victory, she was magnanimous toward her opponents. Good. The benevolent donor funded scholarships for hundreds of students. His munificent gift transformed the institution. Perfect. Magnanimous especially suggests generosity of spirit, not just money. If someone is generous with their time or help, they're altruistic or they show largesse. Say it. Altruistic. Her altruistic work in the community inspired others. Good. The billionaire's largesse benefited numerous charities. Altruistic especially means selflessly concerned with others' welfare. If someone is selfish, they're self-serving, egotistical, or avaricious. Let's practice. His decisions were entirely self-serving. Good. Her egotistical behavior alienated colleagues. The avaricious executive hoarded resources. Avaricious especially means greedy for wealth. Now let's discuss flexibility and rigidity. At B2, someone is flexible or inflexible. At C1, if someone is very flexible and adaptable, they're versatile, adaptable, or pliable. Repeat. Versatile. She's a versatile performer who excels in many genres. Good. Successful companies must be adaptable to market changes. His pliable nature makes him easy to work with. Perfect. If someone is excessively flexible to the point of having no principles, they're malleable or acquiescent. Say it. Acquiescent. He was too acquiescent and never stood up for his beliefs. Young people can be malleable and easily influenced. These suggest flexibility that might not be positive.
If someone is inflexible or rigid, they're rigid, obstinate, or intransigent. Let's practice. His rigid thinking prevents him from considering alternatives. Good. She's obstinate and refuses to compromise. Excellent. The intransigent negotiators refuse to budge on key issues. Perfect. Intransigent is particularly sophisticated and suggests stubborn refusal to change position. Now let's work on describing social behavior and interaction. At B2, someone is friendly or unfriendly. At C1, we've already covered affable and amiable, but let's add more. If someone is outgoing and sociable, they're gregarious, extroverted, or convivial. Say it with me. Gregarious. He's naturally gregarious and enjoys being around people. Good. The convivial atmosphere at the party put everyone at ease. Excellent. Extroverted personalities thrive in social settings. Beautiful. If someone is reserved or shy, they're introverted, reticent, or reserved. We've used reticent before, but let's reinforce it. She's quite introverted and prefers small gatherings. Good. He was reserved and didn't share much about himself. Excellent. The reticent witness was reluctant to testify. Perfect. If someone is unfriendly or hostile, they're aloof, standoffish, or antagonistic. Repeat, aloof. She remained aloof and distant throughout the meeting. Good. His standoffish manner made it hard to approach him. Excellent. The antagonistic tone of the letter surprised everyone. Perfect. Each word suggests a different type of unfriendliness. Let's discuss describing honesty and deception. At B2, someone is honest or dishonest. At C1, if someone is completely honest and straightforward, they're candid, forthright, or transparent. Say it. Forthright. I appreciate your forthright response to my question. Good. She gave a candid assessment of the situation. Excellent. We need transparency in government operations. Perfect. If someone is honest to an excessive degree that might be hurtful, they're blunt or tactless. Let's practice. His blunt criticism hurt her feelings. Good. The tactless comment created an awkward moment. Excellent. These show honesty without diplomacy. If someone is dishonest or deceptive, they're deceitful, duplicitous, or disingenuous. Repeat, disingenuous. His apology seemed disingenuous and insincere. Good. She was duplicitous, saying one thing but doing another. Excellent. The deceitful scheme defrauded thousands of investors. Perfect. Duplicitous specifically suggests two-faced behavior. If someone hides the truth or is deliberately vague, they're evasive or they equivocate. Say it. Equivocate. Stop equivocating and give me a straight answer. Good. The witness gave evasive answers to avoid incriminating himself. Excellent. These suggest avoiding truth without outright lying. Now let's work on describing motivation and drive. At B2, someone is motivated or lazy. At C1, if someone is highly motivated and ambitious, they're driven, ambitious, or zealous. Repeat, zealous. She's zealous in her pursuit of excellence. Good. His ambitious goals inspired the entire team. Excellent. Driven individuals often become successful entrepreneurs. Perfect. Zealous carries particularly strong connotations of passionate enthusiasm. If someone is motivated by a specific passion or calling, they're passionate, dedicated, or they have fervor. Say it with me. Fervor. She approached the project with tremendous fervor. Good. His passionate advocacy for social justice inspired many. Excellent. The dedicated teacher spent extra hours helping students. Beautiful. If someone lacks motivation, they're apathetic, lethargic, or indolent. Let's practice. The apathetic response to the crisis was disappointing. Good. After the illness, he felt lethargic and unmotivated. Excellent. The indolent employee did only the bare minimum. Perfect. Indolent is particularly formal and suggests lazy unwillingness to work. Let's discuss describing reactions and responses. At B2, someone reacts to something. At T1, if someone reacts quickly and appropriately, they respond or they're responsive. If someone reacts strongly and emotionally, they react vehemently or their response is visceral. Repeat, visceral. She had a visceral reaction to the disturbing images. Good. He responded vehemently to the accusations. Excellent. Visceral suggests a deep, instinctive, gut-level reaction. If someone reacts calmly and thoughtfully, they respond judiciously or with equanimity. Say it. Equanimity. She maintained her equanimity despite the provocation. Good. He responded judiciously, taking time to consider all factors. Equanimity suggests calmness and composure under pressure. If someone overreacts, they're overreacting or their response is disproportionate or excessive. Let's practice. His anger was disproportionate to the minor offense. Good. She tends to overreact to small problems. The excessive response created more problems than it solved. Perfect. Now let's work on describing memory and recall. At B2, someone remembers or forgets. At C1, if someone remembers something vividly, they recall, recollect, or reminisce. Repeat, recollect. I clearly recollect the events of that day. Good. She reminisced about her childhood summers. Can you recall the exact words he used? Perfect. Reminisce specifically suggests pleasantly remembering the past.
If someone has excellent memory, they have acute recall or a retentive memory. Say it. Retentive. She has a remarkably retentive memory for details. Good. His acute recall of facts impressed the interviewers. These phrases are more sophisticated than just good memory. If someone forgets, at C1, we might say they fail to recall or something eludes them. Let's practice. The name momentarily eluded me. Good. I failed to recall where I had put the document. Perfect. The details of the conversation have escaped my memory. Perfect. Let's discuss describing standards and quality. At B2, something is good quality or bad quality. At C1, if something is of the highest quality, it's exemplary, superlative, or impeccable. Repeat after me. Impeccable. Her credentials are impeccable. Good. The restaurant is known for its superlative cuisine. Excellent. He set an exemplary standard for others to follow. Perfect. If something is of acceptable but not outstanding quality, it's adequate, satisfactory, or competent. Say it. Adequate. The facilities are adequate but not exceptional. Good. His performance was satisfactory. She's a competent manager but not outstanding. Beautiful. These suggest meeting minimum standards without exceeding them. If something is of poor quality, it's substandard, inferior, or deficient. Let's practice. The construction work was substandard and dangerous. Good. This product is inferior to the competitors' offerings. Excellent. The report was deficient in several key areas. Perfect. Now let's work on describing scope of impact. At B2, something affects many people or affects few people. At C1, if something affects everyone or everything, it's universal, pervasive, or ubiquitous. We've used ubiquitous and pervasive before, but let's reinforce with universal. The desire for happiness is universal across all cultures. Good. Smartphone addiction has become pervasive in modern society. Excellent. Social media platforms are now ubiquitous. Perfect. If something affects only a specific group, it's localized, confined, or niche. Repeat. Niche. This product appeals to a niche market. Good. The problem was localized to one department. The outbreak was confined to a small area. Beautiful.
Now, we've reached our target, so let me bring everything together for you in this final section. We've covered an enormous amount of vocabulary today, and I want you to feel confident about what you've learned. You now have the tools to express yourself with the precision and sophistication of a C1 speaker. But here's the truth. Knowing these words is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you start using them. And I don't mean forcing them into every sentence. That would sound unnatural and pretentious. Instead, I want you to internalize them gradually, letting them become part of your natural vocabulary. Here's my challenge for you. Starting today, choose 5 words from this masterclass that resonated with you, words that you can see yourself actually using in real conversations or writing. Maybe it's tenacious because you identify with that quality in yourself. Maybe it's eloquent because you admire people who speak that way. Maybe it's paradoxically because you love expressing complex ideas. Whatever words speak to you, write them down. Then, over the next week, consciously try to use each of those 5 words at least twice. Write sentences with them. Use them in emails. Slip them into conversations when appropriate. The key word here is appropriate. Don't force a word like sagacious into casual chat with friends unless it truly fits. But in professional emails, in presentations, in formal discussions, these words will elevate your communication dramatically. After you've mastered those 5 words, come back to this video. Choose 5 more. Repeat the process. This is how you build C1 vocabulary naturally and permanently. It's not about memorizing 1,000 words in one sitting. It's about gradually, consistently expanding your active vocabulary, the words you actually use, not just the words you recognize. Let me share something important with you. The difference between B2 and C1 isn't just vocabulary, it's confidence. It's the confidence to express nuanced thoughts, to make subtle distinctions, to choose precisely the right word for the situation. Every time you use one of these advanced words correctly and naturally, you're reinforcing that C1 identity. You're telling yourself, I am an advanced English speaker. And you know what? You are. The fact that you've stayed with me through this entire masterclass, that you've practiced these words, that you've engaged with this material, already shows you have C1 potential. You just need to activate it through consistent practice and use. Remember, language learning is not a destination. It's a journey. You don't wake up one day and suddenly you're C1. It happens gradually through thousands of small improvements. Each new word you master, each nuanced expression you add to your repertoire, each time you choose a more precise term over a basic one, You're moving forward on that journey. I want you to be patient with yourself. There will be moments when you forget a word you learned today. There will be times when you reach for a sophisticated term and it doesn't come to mind, so you fall back on a simpler one. That's completely normal. That's part of the learning process. Don't let those moments discourage you. Just note the word you wanted to use, review it later, and try again next time. Here's another practical tip. Start reading more advanced English content. When you read articles in publications like The Economist, The Atlantic, or quality newspapers, you'll encounter these C1 words in context. You'll see how native speakers use them naturally. You'll internalize not just the meaning, but the nuances, the connotations, the context where each word fits best. This passive exposure is just as important as active practice. Also, consider keeping a vocabulary journal, not a list of definitions. That's boring and ineffective. Instead, write example sentences for each new word, sentences from your own life, your own experiences. If you learn tenacious, don't just write tenacious means determined. Write, I was tenacious in learning English, studying every day despite my busy schedule. When you personalize vocabulary this way, it sticks much better. Let me address something else. Some of you might be thinking, but Natasha, when I use these advanced words, won't I sound pretentious or like I'm showing off? That's a valid concern, and here's my answer. Context is everything. In professional settings, academic writing, formal presentations, these words are not just appropriate, they're expected at C1 level. In casual conversation with friends, yes, you'd want to be more selective. The mark of true language mastery is knowing not just what words mean, but when to use them. Think of your vocabulary like a wardrobe. You wouldn't wear a tuxedo to the gym, right? Similarly, you choose your words based on the situation. Advanced vocabulary is your formal attire for professional and academic contexts, but you still need your casual vocabulary for everyday situation. The goal is to have both and to know when to use each. Now, I want to talk about something that holds many learners back, the fear of making mistakes. You might worry, what if I use one of these words incorrectly? What if people judge me? Let me tell you something. Every advanced English speaker, including native speakers, occasionally uses words incorrectly. It's how we learn. The difference is that successful learners push through that fear. They use new words, they make mistakes, they learn from those mistakes, and they improve. So give yourself permission to experiment. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. The only real mistake is not trying. Every time you attempt to use a new word, regardless of whether you get it exactly right, you're building your language skills. You're training your brain to access more sophisticated vocabulary. That's progress. Let me leave you with this final thought. You've invested your time in this masterclass because you're serious about improving your English. You're not content with staying at B2. You want to reach C1, to express yourself with precision and sophistication. That ambition, that drive, that's what will get you there. The vocabulary I've taught you today is just the vehicle. Your motivation and consistent practice are the fuel. So here's what I want you to do right now. Before you close this video, commit to one specific action. Maybe it's choosing your first 5 words to practice. Maybe it's signing up for an English newspaper subscription. Maybe it's starting your vocabulary journal. Whatever it is, make that commitment concrete. Write it down. Tell someone about it. Make it real. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. I'm here creating content to help you. There's a whole community of English learners striving for the same goals. We're all in this together, pushing each other forward, celebrating each other's progress. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Thank you for your dedication to improving your English. Thank you for having the patience to work through this comprehensive masterclass. I genuinely believe in your potential to reach C1 level and beyond. Keep practicing, keep learning, keep pushing yourself, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. You've got this. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue building your English skills together. Until then, stay motivated, stay consistent, and keep flowing with English. This is Natasha from English Flow State, reminding you that fluency is not about perfection. It's about progress, one word at a time. See you soon.